Hello out there. It's me, Caroline, and I want you to support me for local office. I have a track record of success, I am well qualified, and I am here to work for you. Oh, excuse me. I was up all night practicing my campaign speech. That's right, I am running for office. But there is one little tiny problem. I don't really know what I am doing. Good thing we'll be covering campaigning for office in this next series. Let's jump right in. In today's lesson, you will identify the principles behind the campaign and election process, the steps in the campaign and election process, and the issues that limit those principles. There will be an essential question to consider as you follow us along in this series, as well as an essential question to answer by the end of this lesson. Come along! This may sound crazy, but America has thousands of governments, if you count all the local governments, state governments, and the federal government. As we go down to the lower levels of government, the amount of elected positions increases. So with thousands of governments and multiple candidates running in each election, it may be no surprise that America has millions of elections taking place during the election cycle. A campaign is the process in which a candidate seeks and obtains a nomination and then seeks office in a general election. Like all of our democratic institutions, campaigns and the elections they lead to are founded on certain principles. With this in mind, consider the following question as this series continues on. To what degree do campaigns and elections in America uphold our key democratic principles? By the end of the series, you should be able to answer this question and explain your reasoning. In this particular lesson, consider this question as well. How does gerrymandering impact the campaign and election process? Elections are the very foundation of republicanism. They express the democratic ideal we call popular sovereignty. But just because elections happen doesn't mean these ideals are achieved. Campaigns must be conducted in a manner that allows for the free and open competition of candidates and ideas. With this in mind, the use of public resources should be equitable and transparent. Today, campaigns reflect the principle of federalism. For example, the Federal Elections Commission, or FEC, is an agency separate from the federal executive branch. This commission is charged with enforcing federal election laws. State and county boards of elections are also charged with enforcing election laws, as well as registering voters, overseeing polling places and precincts, and registering lobbyist groups. Ready for a common misconception to be busted? Political parties are not included in the Constitution. Political parties are, however, a form of civic associations, and civic associations are an essential part of American democracy. Remember, liberalism identifies civic associations as the main agent of social change. Special interest groups are another example of civic associations. These groups typically endorse specific candidates and hold fundraisers. These may be community-based interest groups formed by concerned citizens to lobby for specific purposes. Mothers Against Drunk Driving, or MAD, is one such group. Labor unions, teachers' unions, even the Fraternal Order of Police are all examples of special interest groups. And now it's time to show what you know. What key principles inform the campaign process? What different types of civic associations are involved in elections? The 10th Amendment grants reserved rights, so each state has different requirements for running for different offices. Generally, they cover residency requirements, which means you must be a resident of a state for a certain amount of time and be a specific age to run for office. Typically, more important offices have steeper requirements to run. The process to become a candidate in both primary and general elections typically requires you to file, pay a fee, have a number of citizens' signatures, or a combination of these. Other things to consider are a person's obligations, such as to one's family, as well as how powerful the opposing party may be. These can all become deterrences for ordinary citizens who wish to run for office. Something else to consider when running is who the incumbent is. Word alert! An incumbent is someone who is currently holding that office. Incumbents have the advantage of name recognition, experience in campaign organization, and established fundraising. However, if polls reveal a weakness, a challenger from within the incumbent's party may emerge, or someone from the opposition may win the general election. Candidates typically participate first in elections run by their parties. If they win these elections, they become the nominee to run for the larger election. These nominating elections are called primaries or caucuses. Today, states typically determine when the elections take place and the registration process for the candidates. Primary elections can get nasty and split parties up, so political parties have conventions afterwards to reunite the party for the general election. At the convention, candidates are introduced, and the party's platform and planks are rolled out as well. Word alert! A platform is a set of planks or specific stances on important issues the party wants to promote in the general election. After the convention, candidates begin working on winning the general election. Election Day in America is determined by Congress. It is set as the next Tuesday after the first Monday in November. States traditionally set elections for their officials on the same day. It's that time again. Time to show what you know. What determines the requirements for running for office, and why? What initial steps are required to run for office? Why does an incumbent have an advantage in an election? What is a platform? Then please list the key steps in a campaign. Drawing up the districts within states, otherwise known as redistricting, is an important tool in ensuring representation, and thus elections represent the democratic principles of popular sovereignty as well as reflect ideals behind federalism. But it is a major point of contention in American politics. Every 10 years, the census is conducted in order to determine the population and from there, apportionment. State legislatures determine state and federal voting districts by reapportioning representatives in both the State House of Representatives as well as in state legislatures. Well, who makes up the state legislatures? People from the parties. See where this is going? When a political party redraws district maps to favor the election of their candidates, it is called gerrymandering. In addition to poll taxes and literacy tests, redistricting has been a historical tool to break up voting blocks and thus suppress the outcome of campaigning and voting. And as districts are split up, if they do not constitute a majority, those split districts end up losing importance for campaigning, allowing representatives to disregard the needs of those lost constituents. Poor redistricting can also solidify one-party control of a district and state, having a huge impact on congressional representation. In 2016, 2 cases were combined and ruled on by the Supreme Court regarding the issue of partisan gerrymandering that lower courts had struck down. These 2 cases are Rucho v. Common Cause and Lamone v. Benesick. Rucho dealt with Republican-drawn districts in North Carolina. Lamone dealt with Democrat-drawn districts in Maryland. Out of these cases, the Supreme Court ruled that partisan gerrymandering was not an issue for the courts to resolve, as it was of a political nature. Instead, these matters were intended for the states. A dissenting opinion argued that the court had sidestepped what was a major issue, which was, according to Justice Kagan, the most fundamental of constitutional rights, the rights to participate equally in the political process, to join with others to advance political beliefs, and to choose their political representatives. However, in the majority ruling, the court pointed to a difference between partisan and racial gerrymandering, citing the court's right to adjudicate issues dealing with racial gerrymandering only. Check out the PDF for a discussion of racial gerrymandering and modern debate around updating the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Think about it. If politicians draw a redistricting line right down the middle of your neighborhood, voters voting the same way on issue 1 will lose the power of being a whole block of voters and instead be separated into 2 separate districts. In this way, gerrymandering potentially limits the role of popular sovereignty by interrupting groups of voters looking for representation. Even if the turnout increases, if those groups cannot create a majority within their newly defined districts, the impact of their voting could be lost. It also reveals the difficulty that federalism places on a democratic society. How, you might ask? Well, Federalism can create a dynamic between federal and state governments in which political parties, which are non-governmental organizations, can redistrict in order to have a better chance at gaining power. This could lead to corruption, backroom dealings, and underhanded maneuvering. Oof, not good. It's that time again. Time to show what you know. First, what is gerrymandering? How does it impact the integrity of elections in terms of its adherence to our principles? Recap. Today we learned that key democratic principles inform the practices and participation that determine campaign processes in America. Finally, gerrymandering calls into question the degree to which campaigns and elections uphold our principles. That's it for us today. In the next lesson, we will discuss the impact of money in politics. But that's for next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and remember to vote, debate, and participate. Hey.